Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Iodine. I'm your host, Benny. And today we are doing some writing. So let's go ahead and get into come on, Word, open up. It. Hi, Poyo. What's going on, buddy? How are you doing? Hi, Batman. Welcome in. Glad to see you. So we have only a couple of chapters to edit. So that'll be fun. We'll keep the bat signal on for you. First part of Police Story 5 came out. I saw that. I saw that on your server. Or no, you actually messaged it to me. I haven't seen like it has new pictures on your post of the Police Story 5. Feel free to put a link to the post here in Twitch. I don't think it'll be auto removed. And I mean a link to your story, not a link to the individual images, you know? See, I don't need that one. Cool. Oh, that's right. Because you're a mod. Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Wait a minute. It's alright, Batman. Don't worry about it. I know you're a fan. Which is the only reason that I, Oh, okay. I think I did do it correctly the first time. Have a good one, Batman. Thanks for dropping in. is there a reason that I'm not seeing? Oh, because it's over here. Okay, I'm actually going to go to outputs. Next to image grids. I think I could clear these out, you know? I don't think I need to keep all this stuff for posterity or whatever. Okay, we're gonna do some realistic ones now. Again. Cool. Oh. Ugh. Photo. Realistic. All right, let's go.
Chapter 9. The mixture of surprise, hate, and a tinge of fear on Lucy's face was an aphrodisiac to Val, the sight flooding her body with endorphins and adrenaline. She could tell how much Lucy wanted to kill her, and Val was hoping she would try, but the woman had more restraint than Val gave her credit for. Still, the world-shattering reveal to Lucy was the cherry on top of this most fortunate day. Val took one final look at Lucy before she was ushered into the transport tucked behind the stage. The inside was set up much like the common area of a luxurious cruise, serviced by Oracle's androids and occupied by the previous 18 beneficiaries. Val had little interest in conversing with the other winners, so she went to the bar. The android bartender was behind the counter, cleaning a glass in a skeuomorphic display as he turned toward Val. Congratulations.
An android bartender was behind the counter, cleaning a glass in a skeuomorphic display as he turned toward Val. Like, why are there dirty glasses, you know? But it's fine. It's funny.
Congratulations on your win, he said. Can I get you anything as a celebratory drink? Sure, Val replied. What do you have? We have many beverage types available, from soft beverages like sparkling water, coffees, and milk, but we also offer a wide selection of alcoholic drinks such as aged whiskey, cocktails, and a selection of vintage wines. Any of these drinks can also be spiked with your choice of amphetamines, mescaline, LSD, THC, adrenochrome, or any number of drugs that can be synthesized on board. Val was spoiled for choice. Many of the options were things she hadn't heard of before. She was tempted to try a cocktail with everything in it, but thought it might be better to pace herself, at least until she settled into wherever she would be staying at the resort. She ordered a coffee spiked with light THC. When it was delivered to her, she left the bar and started walking around the common area of the ship. Much like herself, most of the...
Well, coffee lightly spiked with THC.
When it was delivered to her, she left the bar and started walking around the common area of the ship. Much like herself, most of the other winners seemed to be keeping to themselves. Val found an empty seat and began sipping at her coffee as the rest of the winners filled the ship. Once the last beneficiary boarded, the outer doors closed, and an Oracle android stepped into the center of the common area. Welcome, beneficiaries, and congratulations. We are departing for the resort and will arrive within a few minutes. In the meantime, please enjoy your beverages. As the android spoke, Val could already feel her weight change with the ship's ascension into the sky. The other beneficiaries were startled by the shift, unaccustomed as Val was to travel by OTEC ship. Just as Oracle had said, the transport came to rest a few minutes later. After Oracle announced their arrival, the transport doors opened onto a lavishly decorated circular landing surrounded by a beautiful violet forest framed by scenic mountains in every direction. On the platform stood 21 androids. Each one was an individual in appearance based on the preferences of each beneficiary, at least. Judging by the android approaching Val that was the spitting image of Jay, shivers shot down Val's spine. It was like she was looking at a ghost, the pure white style of the android's hair, eyes, and clothes lending to its ethereal visage. Welcome to the Beneficiaries Resort, the android said. I will be your concierge during your stay. Please speak to me if you need anything. I will be showing you around the resort, starting with the event hall where you can meet and mingle with the other current and former beneficiaries, after which I will show you to your personal bungalow. Val reached her hand out and shook that of the android's. Its skin was soft and warm, and were it not for the white hair, eyes, and its precise...
That of the androids.
Androids. Its skin was soft and warm, and were it not for the white hair, eyes, and its precise, deliberate movements, Val would have easily mistaken it for human. Thank you, Val said. What do I call you? Oracle is generally what most people call us, but I'm more than happy if you choose something else. Okay, well, thank you, Oracle. As Val gripped its hand and looked over its gentle smile.
What does ameliorate mean? Ameliorate? Hey there, number 13th. Welcome in. How are you doing today? I'll go ahead and use that. I'm more than happy to ameliorate. If you choose something else. Big words. I like big words. Okay, well, thank you, Oracle.
Okay, well, thank you, Oracle. As Val gripped its hand and looked over its gentle smile, she couldn't help but wonder just how anthropomorphic it was, maybe due to how much it looked like Jay. Already, Val was thinking about cutting it open and seeing what its blood, flesh, and bones looked like. After all of the beneficiaries were greeted, they were led to the nearby event hall, already bustling with many of the previous round of winners. Val, still not sure of what to expect, tried to read the faces of the previous beneficiaries. Some of them appeared well-rested and happy on the surface, but almost universally, there was a tinge of concern. Looking around the hall, Val could see nearly every one of them was on edge. She imagined it was because they were about to return back to veracity, to a mundane life of doing whatever they wish, just within the safety of virtual and augmented reality. It still wasn't quite clear to Val what would be allowed here. She understood what the concept of true freedom meant, but she was unsure quite what it meant this alien planet. She looked around for a friendly face.
She had her own concept of what quote-unquote true freedom meant, but she was unsure if it her definition was the same as on this alien planet.
She had her own concept of what true freedom meant, but she was unsure her definition was the same as on this alien planet. She looked around for a friendly face, or at least a face that was friendly beyond the shallow surface. She settled on a woman sitting on a beach chair being given a colorful beverage from her large male-presenting concierge. As Val approached, she waited for the woman to acknowledge her presence. "Hello," Val said. "Hey there." The woman replied with a smile. "May I have a seat?" "Sure thing." As Val sat down on the chair next to her, the woman reached her free hand out. "Jane," she said. Val shook her hand. "I'm Amelia," Val replied. "It's nice to meet you. Welcome to the resort. I hope you enjoy your stay." "Thanks. I'm sure that I will, but you're not really sure what to do?" Jane asked with a smile. Val nodded. "I'm not sure it really helps, but do whatever the hell you want." "Yeah." Val laughed. "That's what has always been said about this place, but what if what I want is Dash?" "I'm going to stop you right there and let you know that whatever your desire is, Oracle will be able to accommodate it. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from having my concierge fuck the hell out of me right here in front of you and everyone else." In fact, Jane looked up at her large concierge and bit her lip. Val could see where this was going. That's okay. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to, but I kinda want to." "I see. Well, public sex isn't necessarily my thing." "Not yet. Maybe you should try it sometime?" Jane laughed again. "Though, I see your concierge looks a bit more delicate than mine. Is it possible that your desires might be a little darker?" The woman gave Val a sly smile. Val looked away, blushing. "Like I said earlier, Oracle can accommodate anything." As Jane spoke, movement caught her eye from behind Val. There was a faint look of surprise on her face when she continued speaking. "Well, almost anything, but this should give you an idea of what's possible." Jane motioned behind Val. When Val turned, the sight instantly sent a chill down her spine. Moving up toward the event hall from one of the surrounding bungalows was a wild-eyed and angry man clad only in an open robe and slippers. It wasn't the fact that he was openly displaying nudity that caught her attention at first. It was the dark red spots on the robe's fabric and staining the skin all over his pelvis, mouth, and lower jaw. Furthermore, he was pulling something behind him. The sound of subdued whimpers and cries hit Val's ears before she saw what it was coming from. In the man's grip was a boy, completely nude and futilely fighting against the much larger man's strength, and a young woman concierge following behind. Tears were streaming from the boy's reddened eyes. Eventually, the sounds of the boy's whimpers caught the attention of most of the other beneficiaries, and was met with gasps and faint murmuring. Once the man reached the central circle of the event hall, he threw the boy forward, who stumbled and fell to the floor, then scrambled to get up and away from the man, but was stopped by a foot coming down hard against his back, flattening him against the ground. The man looked around to see that he hadn't quite caught the attention of everyone yet. "Listen up," the man shouted. Everybody was now watching the spectacle. The man continued, "If you really think that you can do anything in this place, well, you're just as much a fool as I was." The man removed his foot from the boy's back only to kick him in the ribs to roll him over, where the man came down hard with his knees against the boy's arms. The boy was pinned facing upward toward the man, struggling with all his might to get away, but there was
Facing up toward the man.
up toward the man, struggling with all his might to get away, but there was nowhere he could go. "Please, don't hurt me," the boy shouted with absolute fear in his eyes. "Shut the fuck up," the man yelled, punctuating his curse with a tightened fist against the center of the boy's face. Blood shot from the boy's nose as it was instantly broken, and his cry turned into a guttural grunt. His voice started coming up again in a pained yell, but was immediately hit with the other fist. The man started laying relentless blows to the boy's head, one after another, not giving him a chance to breathe. It was a strange feeling to Val, seeing this happen only meters away from her and all of the other guests and concierges, not a single one of them lifting a finger or moving to stop the man from his extremely violent outburst. The boy's body went from flailing desperately, to shaking uncontrollably, to twitching only when hit, and then to laying completely motionless as the man continued. Eventually, the skin on the boy's face bled, then tore, and when the man felt his cranium cave in, the man gripped it through his orbital cavity and pulled a large portion of his skull from the rest of the no longer recognizable gore. The man held it up, presenting it toward the rest of the beneficiaries. The inside of the boy's skull wasn't bone, but had a glassy, highly processed ceramic appearance. Much of the new beneficiaries already carried a look of shock from witnessing such a violent act, but few of the old guard appeared surprised. Those that did had a look of offense and anger, not that the man would do something so brazen, but instead at the fact that the dead boy wasn't human in the first place. "Look," the man shouted. "Look at how they lie to you, and straight to your fucking face." He pointed at the shard of android skull structure, then approached his own concierge and threw it at her, the piece bouncing off her chest without reaction. The man then started yelling into her face. "You really think we can't tell the difference? I apologize for the inconvenience caused by the product quality, which resulted from Dash." The concierge's reply was cut short by the man's fist colliding with the side of its face, knocking it to the ground. "Fuck you," the man yelled, then stomped hard on the android's face. "I said real, not this manufactured garbage." He punctuated his words with continued stomps against the android's head, already cracked and leaking, but displayed much less simulated fear and anguish as the one that had just been destroyed next to it. The man's tantrum came to an end once the concierge's face was in pieces, then he left to return to his bungalow in a huff. "Jesus Christ," Val said. "Any questions?" Jane asked, taking a sip from her drink. Val couldn't draw her eyes away from the bodies. "Real?" Val asked. "Yep. If you want some playthings, just ask your concierge, and they'll be able to provide you some." "Just not real ones?" "Oh, absolutely, she'll bring you real ones. But, you know, there's only so many out there, and that guy, well, he's been going through them like tissue paper. It hasn't really affected me, but there are a few other beneficiaries that didn't seem to care for it." "Who is he?" Val asked. Jane put a finger to her chin. "I think it's like Corval or something. I'm not really sure." She turned toward her concierge. "Oracle?" "The man's name is Andrew Corval," it said. Jane smirked and leaned back in her chair. "Nailed it," she said, then took a sip of her drink. "What does he do back in Veracity?" Instead of asking Jane, Val turned toward her own concierge. "I'm afraid that information is private at his request," it said. "So?" Val raised an eyebrow. "If I'm truly free in this place, why can't I have that information?" "You are free to make the request. However, I do not have the ability to answer. I would recommend making the request in person." Val wasn't satisfied with the answer and already was thinking of ways to punish her concierge when they arrived at her bungalow. As she thought about what she would do, she started considering what other things she could try. "So, tell me, what kinds of stuff have you done since you got here? I mean, besides that." Val pointed at Jane's large android. Jane laughed. "I've gone through a few playthings myself. Usually, I like to direct and watch while it does stuff with them." "Really?" Val asked, and Jane nodded. Val shivered at the thought. "That's amazing." "You think so?" Jane said, then put on a sly smile. "You want to see?" The women stood up from their chairs and started moving toward Jane's bungalow. Val fell behind so she could speak with her concierge. "If she asks her concierge to attack me, are you going to be able to defend me?" "I will do what I can, but the best defense will be simply telling it to stop." "That's not very reassuring," Val said. "What if she tries to attack me?" "In that case, I would be able to provide any needed medical assistance. However, I cannot interfere with the actions of another beneficiary. Should you wish to continue interacting with her or any other beneficiary at the resort, do so at your own risk." "Okay." Again, Val wasn't quite sure she liked the answer, but it made sense, and now she knew to be on the lookout. A few minutes later, they arrived at Jane's bungalow. It was large and sleek, combining hard edges with soft curves and plenty of floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the beautiful lavender flora that made up the natural wall around the building. Inside the building was a large, open living area combined with a fully equipped, gourmet kitchen. It was nice and reminded Val of some of the exotic excursions that she went on with her father when she was younger. She felt like she was home again. Jane stopped in the kitchen to grab a refill of her drink before guiding Val toward the stairs. She motioned toward the flight going up. "The bedroom is up there," Jane said, then turned and stepped onto the downward flight, "and down here is the playroom." She winked at Val and continued on. Val followed behind her. Down the stairs and to a heavy, polished steel door. It opened as Jane approached, and a wave of sound was the first thing through the opening. The deafening audio was a mixture of discordant screams, forceful percussive beats, and grimy electric strings. The volume of the music, if it could be called that, came down as they entered. The room was a sizable dungeon made to highly technical specifications with dim, red LED lights lining the walls that changed to a more neutral tone when Jane stepped inside. Along with several pieces of furniture worthy of the most disturbed minds of torturers in the Middle Ages, there were several people shackled to the walls, on their knees in a stressed position. Every one of the men and women were nude and in varying states of dehydration or starvation. A few of them began to stir, but some remained still. Jane walked in a circle to each one of her prisoners, giving each one a hard slap in the face. The first few reacted as expected, however weak it was, but one of the men didn't move at all, so Jane gave him another slap. Again, the man had no reaction. Jane...
However weak. First few reacted as expected. However weak the reactions were. One of the men didn't move at all. So Jane gave him another slap. Hey there, Poyo.
The first few reacted as expected, however weak the reactions were, but one of the men didn't move at all, so Jane gave him another slap. Again, the man had no reaction. Jane looked back at her concierge, pointing at the man. "Looks like we lost another one. Double check that he's gone and take him up to my bedroom." Without hesitation, the concierge moved to the man and checked his pulse. A moment later, the corpse's wrists came free of the shackles, then the android picked him up and removed him. Jane continued her walk around the room, waking each of her playthings. Val simply stood and watched, until she reached the last one, a young woman with dark hair. Jane hit her, hard. The woman grunted and looked up at Jane, then over to Val. The look of shock that grew on the woman's face mirrored that of Val's. "Rosa," Val said. "Val?" Rosa replied in a weak, raspy voice. "Val, please help me dash." Rosa was hit with another slap from Jane, who then looked over at Val. "Val?" Jane asked. "I thought you said your name was Amelia. Do you know her?" "I do, actually. She was one of the people I arrived with." "What, like, she's a beneficiary or something?" "I've had her for a few days now, so..." Jane raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you're not talking about the Milky Way shit, are you?" "I told you," Rosa said under her breath, resulting in another hit to the side of her head. "Quiet. I wasn't talking to you," Jane said, then motioned for Val to continue. "Well, yeah, actually. We landed here about a week ago, coming from a planet in the Milky Way." "Wow," Jane laughed. "That's wild. I've had a few of them say that since I've been here, but I thought it was just some kind of brainwashing thing." "Other people have said that?" "Yep. Since I've been here, I've had like 3 other ones mention something like that, I think. If it's true, you must be amazingly lucky to arrive here and become a beneficiary." Jane looked Val up and down. "You think some of that luck will rub off on me? I'd love to be chosen to be a benefactor tomorrow." "I'm not totally against it," Val said. "After you leave, do you think I could have this one?" She pointed toward Rosa. Jane looked back and forth. Val could see the consideration rolling around in her head. I don't know. I was kind of looking forward to finishing them all off before I leave." Jane looked at Val, who could see in her smile that she was looking to do whatever was most inconvenient to her. Val simply smiled back, then motioned for her concierge. "Could you grab me another drink from the kitchen?" Val asked. The concierge nodded, but Val grabbed her arm and leaned in to whisper in her ear before letting her go. As Val's concierge was leaving the dungeon, Jane's was just returning. "Just in time," Jane said. "Let's go ahead and give our new friend here a little show, shall we?" "I'd like that. What did you have in mind?" "Well, I just had this installed the other day but haven't had a chance to use it." Jane walked to a long platform in the middle of the room, longer than a standard bed, with a pair of shackles attached to steel cables at both sides. "You ever seen a person's limbs pulled from their sockets?" "No, can't say that I have." "Me either. Not purposefully, at least. My concierge has gotten a little rough a few times, but this thing is apparently called a rack, a design that was used in the Middle Ages." Jane snapped at her concierge and pointed at Rosa, whose constant state of fear was becoming more extreme as the large android approached. The moment that Rosa's manacles were released, she tried running toward the door, but was quickly stopped by the android gripping a fist full of her hair. Rosa yelped and lost her footing, then started struggling ferociously as he dragged her to the table. Wow, she's still got a lot of fight in her, Jane said with a laugh. As the woman was forced onto the table and each of her wrists and ankles bound, Jane's hands started wandering around her body. Val's concierge arrived through the door carrying a new drink for her, but was also gripping a large chef's knife that she had retrieved from the kitchen. Jane's focus was on the naked woman on the table, and when Val...
Am I still referring to her as Val? That's, Let's see, where was I? Doesn't... $250. Oops. Yeah, I'm still calling her Val, officially. Wait a minute. Come on. There we go.
Me either. Not purposefully, at least. My concierge has gotten a little rough a few times, but this thing is apparently called a rack, a design that was used in the Middle Ages. Jane snapped at her concierge and pointed at Rosa, whose constant state of fear was becoming more extreme as the large android approached. The moment that Rosa's manacles were released, she tried running toward the door, but was quickly stopped by the android gripping a fist full of her hair. Rosa yelped and lost her footing, then started struggling ferociously as he dragged her to the table. Wow, she's still got a lot of fight in her, Jane said with a laugh. As the woman was forced onto the table and each of her wrists and ankles bound, Jane's hands started wandering around her body. Val's concierge arrived through the door carrying a new drink for her, but was also gripping a large chef's knife that she had retrieved from the kitchen. Jane's focus was on the naked woman on the table, and when Val walked up behind her and gently placed a hand on her body, she fell back into Val's with a comfortable smile. Val traced a finger from her stomach and up her blouse, then gently traced the woman's neckline. Jane moaned and leaned her head back onto Val's shoulder. "You move quick," Jane said. "We haven't even started yet." With Jane's neck and chest open to her, Val raised the knife to the notch between her collarbones. With her eyes closed, Jane didn't know what was happening until the knife was already deep inside her torso, the blade long enough to pierce her heart. Once the knife was firmly in place, Val pushed and pulled forcefully at the handle, making sure it did as much damage as possible before she let go and stepped away. Jane tried to grab the handle, but the incredible pain sapped her strength immediately, and she fell to the floor. The large concierge was fast, but not fast enough to make it around the table before Jane hit the ground. The android quickly gathered her and carried her through the door, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Now Val was alone with Rosa. She walked up to the table. "Oh my God," Rosa said. "Thank you, Val." There was no response. Val stood over Rosa, looking her nude body up and down. The way she was looking at Rosa made her very uncomfortable, and then Val placed a single finger on her stomach and traced a line up between her breasts and to her neck. "Val?" Rosa's ecstatic mood was fading fast. What are you doing? Get me out of here." "It's all right, Rosa. I'm here now. You don't have to worry anymore," Val said, with a smile creeping across her face. "I have a plan." There was a worry that there would be retaliation for what Val did to Jane, but for the rest of the night, no such action came. At noon on the next day, the benefactor selection had begun. The event was much more contained and subdued than the beneficiaries' gala the night before, with only the current and former beneficiaries in attendance at the resort's event hall. A standard model Oracle android in an elegant dress presented itself at the center of the hall. Much of its speech was a fond farewell to the beneficiaries that would be returning home, but the speech ended with the much-anticipated selection. Without further ado, I present to you this month's beneficiary to join our benefactors for an eternity of decadence, and to continue guiding Veracia into prosperity. The android smiled and waited for the audience to finish clapping. And our benefactors have selected Andrew Corville. Chapter 10. The investigation into the new beneficiary.
Chapter 10. I think maybe we might finish editing tonight. That'll be cool. Alright.
Chapter 10. The investigation into the new beneficiaries was quick. It had to be, as it was hard to find any information on the previous ones, and harder still the further back that Kit looked. He thought there would be some kind of independent database, let alone a public listing on the primary beneficiary selection website, but even the cryptic descent didn't have a list. It was a huge disappointment to Kit after not hearing from them for a week after the death of Jay, or Bimala Jean Moon, as he would learn while writing her eulogy. It was the hardest that Kit had worked in his life. Lucy did what he could to help the investigation, but being a stranger on a strange world meant that all she could really do was provide security while Kit sought out people to interview. And providing security just meant standing behind him with a large gun and a lethal scowl. Kit was looking for people that were in contact with any of the beneficiaries that had just been chosen. It was a lot of work, especially considering how quickly their information seemed to disappear from public record, a fact that itself was very alarming to him, and something that was going to be a large part of the biggest story of his career. Over the next week, Kit and Lucy had conversations with over 100 people at the expense of sleep, which neither of them was going to get anyway, especially after Miguel disappeared. Despite their careful safety considerations and the boy's understanding of the dangers, it wasn't enough to keep him from vanishing overnight. The failures were mounting in Lucy's head. Upon hearing the news from the guard that was stationed outside Miguel's quarters, she pushed the man into the wall and beat him relentlessly, but only doing damage to her own fists, choosing to hit the man's armor-plated garb instead of his face. Once she was finished letting her frustrations out, she threw the man to the ground and went to find Kit. The moment she walked into his quarters, he could clearly see the frustration on her face. He gave her a respectful nod in greeting and tried to continue with his writing, but she continued approaching him, pressing into his personal space. He was almost a foot taller than her, but Lucy carried a commanding presence that forced him back away from her until he was pinned against the wall. Her eyes were locked with his. They were filled with such furious anger that, for a moment, Kit wondered whether he was about to die. That moment passed when Kit recognized the gaze of a person that was on the verge of breaking down completely. Without words, the two came to the understanding that they had built up an incredible amount of tension from the extreme stress they were under, and their bodies knew precisely how to release it. Even though neither was the other's preferred type, the passion they shared during their encounter was more powerful than either had experienced in years, and the hour of sleep they had afterward was enough to sustain them for the next couple of days. The two never spoke of it. They were entirely consumed with the investigation. Eventually, they reached the end. Kit put the finishing touches on a series of extensive articles. The first contained dozens of interviews detailing the sordid history of most of the recent batch of beneficiaries, showing them in no uncertain terms to be manipulative, unempathetic, and often violent psychopaths toward nearly anyone who came into contact with them. The next article detailed information about the alarming number of disappearances throughout Veracity, many of whom appeared to be children, people without BSIs, and other disadvantaged groups that could be easily exploited. The last article was the story of Minerva's Whisper, giving account to Lucy's story. The beginning was a biography of her life before arriving on Veracia. Lucy was born on Virilia, in a system near the core of the Milky Way, 29 Earth Standard years ago, 42 Veracian years. Her planet was engulfed in civil war for decades, spurred by the Stellar Dynamics Corporation, who would ultimately take over the planet for its resources. As society collapsed, her family was murdered, and she was abused and forced into human trafficking from a disturbingly young age. She experienced many of the horrors humanity is capable of. For years, it was her way of life, until she seized the opportunity to escape her captors and join the growing rebellion against Stellar Dynamics, an insurgent group known as Virilian. As society collapsed, her family was murdered, and she was abused and forced into human sex trafficking from a disturbingly young age. She experienced many of the horrors humanity is capable of. For years, it was her way of life, until she seized the opportunity to escape her captors and join the growing rebellion against Stellar Dynamics, an insurgent group known as Virilian Valor. She rose quickly through the ranks, but despite her effort and drive, the rebellion failed, and she was forced to flee her home world. Afterward, she leveraged her combat skills for work as an independent mercenary, eventually finding herself on Harmonix, another planet occupied and oppressed by stellar dynamics. She was hired as security chief for Minerva's Whisper, a modified OTEC ship that was being used to smuggle refugees off the planet. As soon as they jumped away, just like all of Voracious settlers, they arrived in orbit around this planet, unable to jump back home, and unable to even find where home is. The article also described all that was known about Rosa and Miguel, and also described how the entire crew and all of the refugees were killed by drones as soon as they landed on the surface, and finally, the article talked in depth about Val. The woman was born as Amelia Walsh-Perez, daughter to Anton Walsh-Perez, the creator and CEO of Stellar Dynamics. Not much was known about Amelia's birthplace, age, or history, but was nonetheless very well known as an icon of decadence and wealth to an absurd level. She decided to try and escape it all, taking the identity of a refugee by the name of Valeria Morales to make it aboard Minerva's Whisper. After landing on Voracia, Amelia is suspected to have murdered a young...
Okay, Creator of a corporation. Founder, that's better. The founder and CEO of Stellar Dynamics.
The woman was born as Amelia Walsh-Perez, daughter to Anton Walsh-Perez, the founder and CEO of Stellar Dynamics. Not much was known about Amelia's birthplace, age, or history, but was nonetheless very well known as an icon of decadence and wealth to an absurd level. She decided to try and escape it all, taking the identity of a refugee by the name of Valeria Morales to make it aboard Minerva's Whisper. After landing on Voracia, Amelia is suspected to have murdered a young boy in the secret humanity purist commune, Oasis of Tradition, and is known to have murdered a young hacktivist girl named Bimala Jean Moon, also known as Jay. Only hours after Amelia had murdered the girl, she was selected as a beneficiary and was sent to the resort. There was an implication and an underlying message to these articles. A conclusion that Kit couldn't quite reach, as he simply didn't have any evidence to back it up. He thought it was pretty clear, nonetheless. Something was terribly wrong in their perfect utopia. Once the articles were finished, Kit published them on his personal outlet, Castillo's Kit with Kit Castillo, but also made sure to distribute it directly to the cryptic descent.
Hold on. Castillo's Kit with Kitiona.
Once the articles were finished, Kit published them on his personal outlet, Castillo's Kit with Kitiona Castillo, but also made sure to distribute it directly to the Cryptic Descent and his own underground mirrors that could get the article out should Oracle object to its content. Get the article out should Oracle object to its contents. And Oracle did. Each of the articles vanished from his site within minutes of being uploaded. The waiting was the worst part of putting up a news story. Usually, he would sit and stare at the view count as it ticked up, but he couldn't even do that. He had to trust that his mirrors and the descent were doing their thing. Lucy wasn't content with just sitting around and waiting for whatever it was that Kit wanted to happen, so she started working on a plan. Lucy considered what her goals were. Fixing the problems of the society was all well and good, and much more noble than her overwhelming desire to execute revenge against Val, but above anything else, Lucy just wanted to go home. She wasn't quite sure why. There was an omnipresent threat of death, torture, or any number of horrible things that might happen after she's disappeared, but her life within the Milky Way carried much of the same threat. Maybe it was just the familiarity that she was looking for. As the days ticked on, Lucy was starting to feel that maybe whatever's causing people to disappear may not be much of a threat to her at all. She had some idea of the capabilities required to take so many people in broad daylight, as seen with Rosa, or even from within the atrium, as with Miguel. If she was going to be taken, it would have happened by now, and there wasn't much she would be able to do about it. Maybe they just simply didn't want her. It was an idea that simultaneously gave her comfort as well as feelings of inadequacy. Her theory was proven when a few days after Kit had released his articles, he, too, was taken, and this time, Lucy witnessed it with her own eyes, still disconnected from Oracle. Just when Lucy and Kit had started to get complacent after Miguel's disappearance, they were walking outdoors, in the open air and broad daylight for the first time in over a week, when a large flying drone came down from the sky. It encompassed Kit within its padded arms and flew off into the sky with him. The entire instance happened within a few seconds. To her credit, Lucy was able to train her rifle on the machine and fire before it was on Kit, but the bullet ricocheted off the machine's plating and whistled into the distance. It was only after the drone was gone that Lucy realized that she recognized its style and markings, and in particular, the large caliber weapons attached to its arms. This was the model of drone that killed everybody aboard Minerva's Whisper. The unrelenting grip of loneliness grew tight around Lucy's throat. The feeling that had once been so familiar to her when she was a child was now returning vigorously. She still had Dinara and a few new connections within the cryptic descent, but it only made Lucy wonder for how long. It was another reason for her to try and find another way back home, but for days after Kit was lost, she fell into a deep depression and didn't want to do anything to alleviate her situation. Lucy felt like a complete failure. She had done hundreds of contracts previously, but they had all generally been combat operations. Hit jobs, destruction of supplies and infrastructure, a few transport security jobs, but never for human cargo. However, seeing the humanitarian disaster that was Harmonix unfolding even faster than on her own homeworld, she was unable to stay away. As soon as she signed the contract, she became responsible for everyone aboard Minerva's Whisper until the moment they arrived at their destination. Never, in her wildest dreams, did she consider the possibility that she would lose every single one of the 7 other crew members and 28 refugees that she had sworn to protect. To top it all off, whatever force had taken everyone away from her seemed to be wholly uninterested in her. She tried to frame it in her mind that Oracle, or the benefactors, or whoever the hell it was simply feared her, but she knew it was a lie. She had lost all concern for her own safety, leaving her gun in her quarters as she left the atrium and started exploring the city. There was too much on her mind. She wanted most of it to go away, so she did what she always did at the end of a rough contract, sought out some strong alcohol, an array of potent uppers and downers, and some soft, warm flesh to partake in. Lucy still hadn't had her BSI modified to interact with Veracity's network, so she didn't have direct access to Oracle, but as she was standing in the street in full view of any number of cameras, only moments after simply appearing like she needed information, an android appeared from an alley and stood before Lucy with a gentle smile. "Can I be of assistance?" it asked. Maybe. I'm looking for a place to drink. Maybe do some drugs, whatever's legal, mind you, and a place to mingle with other people. Lucy was still cautious about her phrasing, regardless of everything she had heard about personal freedom in this society. Oracle responded through the android without hesitation. "There is a brothel nearby by the name of Desire Sanctum that can provide everything you requested. Would you like directions, or perhaps I can provide transport?" A chill ran down Lucy's spine. She already felt physically vulnerable without her gun or armor, and simply standing within arm's reach of an android felt incredibly dangerous. Vulnerable, however, was precisely what Lucy wanted to be. She had completely given up on trying to protect anyone, including herself, from the unstoppable forces controlling this planet. It was exhilarating, playing chicken with Oracle, and what better way than willingly stepping into an automated vehicle? "Sure," Lucy said. "Take me." It was a short, uneventful ride before the vehicle deposited Lucy outside the front doors to Desire Sanctum. The building itself had a sleek Gothic-inspired design that was very pleasing to Lucy's eyes, almost as much as the number of men and women in various states of sensual undress. Upon walking through the open front archway, Lucy was quickly greeted by a pair of hosts, a man and a woman that, to her surprise, appeared to be fully human.
Lucy said, with a what are some terms that could refer to when you're being intentionally dark? I'm looking for like something Lucy said with a blank smile. With an ironic smile? Or ironic laugh? Okay.
Sure, Lucy said with an ironic laugh. Take me. It was a short, uneventful ride before the vehicle deposited Lucy outside the front doors to Desire Sanctum. The building itself had a sleek Gothic-inspired design that was very pleasing to Lucy's eyes, almost as much as the number of men and women in various states of sensual undress. Upon walking through the open front archway, Lucy was quickly greeted by a pair of hosts, a man and a woman that, to her surprise, appeared to be fully human.
A shout out to Michael looking to scrap Ben. Getting his ass handed back to him. It's good stuff.
Welcome to Desire Sanctum, said one. No requested desire within our power shall be left unrequited. Please, tell us, what is thy desire? The greeting was nice, but Lucy felt embarrassed for simply having heard it. With humble yearning, I entreat thee, my fair lady, to bestow upon my lips but a modest sip of the most resplendent libation that this noble establishment may proffer, Lucy said with a smirk. The woman remained professional, but Lucy could see the disdain in the woman's face as she guided her to the bar. Within a minute, alcohol and narcotics were working into her system, and by the time she started to feel them, she was being guided by the hands of a pair of androgynous companions into a private room where Lucy would spend the greater part of the next few days, though she would remember little of it. There were moments where she thought she would die, moments when she wanted to, but the service was very practiced in keeping things from going too far, making sure she was well hydrated and never overdosed. There were also moments when the pleasures and pains she felt were enhanced and altered, providing an intense sensory overload like nothing she'd ever experienced, even to the point of making her believe that she was dead. Lucy was never a religious person. She had experienced horrors done to her and those around her, perpetrated not by unknowable monsters from beyond the darkness of space, but by very real monsters in human skin. She had heard about gods and heaven and had cultural familiarity with religion, but whenever she tried prayer, she had never received an answer and concluded that it was all a fairy tale. She was questioning that lifelong understanding. She had experienced a religious event, as far as she was concerned, that made her a believer. She was starting to think that everything was connected, that heaven was everywhere, and you only needed to look for it and believe. She started seeing messages on whatever display was in her vision. Messages from God. They told her to let go, to leave the place behind, and to follow their lead to find the light. She didn't know where the messages were leading her, but she followed without question. The divine script lead her out and away from the corporeal palace and to a chariot that carried her through past countless massive radiant spires until she was deposited on a path that guided her inside one of the structures. She was
guided her pass, not through.
Her past countless massive radiant spires until she was deposited on a path that guided her inside one of the structures. She was guided onto a plate that lifted her into the sky. Once it stopped, she followed a new stone pathway into a breathtaking view of endless blue and purple, with clouds of golden white, and toward her final destination, a being of pure light. Blinding at first, the being came into focus as she approached. It took the shape of a young woman with hair and eyes that seemed to be the source of her ethereal splendor. When Lucy was finally able to focus on her visage, she realized it was someone she knew. It was Jay. If there was any doubt in Lucy's mind that it was an angelic being, the doubt disappeared when the angel opened her arms. Lucy didn't resist, moving forward and falling to her knees, then wrapping her arms around the angel and pressing her face into its warm, inviting chest. The angel held Lucy against her and assured her that everything would be okay. For the first time since she was a child, Lucy cried. When Lucy awoke, existence was much less inviting. She was in a dark and dusty room with maintenance equipment all around her that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. She was lying on the ground, but not by herself. Lucy was laying on top of a woman, soft and warm beneath her. When Lucy got the strength to push herself up and look at who it was, she was surprised to see Jay, though instead of her beautiful red hair and eyes to match, her long locks were pure white, the same color as her now ghostly eyes. It was an oracle android that looked to be designed based on Jay's image. Lucy crawled away from it to a sitting position. "What the fuck?" Lucy said, not just referring to the J-droid, but to her setting and physical state as a whole. "How are you feeling, Lucy?" The android said, sitting up to look at her. "Terrible," Lucy said, slowly pushing herself up from the ground with a yawn and a stretch. Her pandiculation was a precise and practiced warm-up for the day, and partway through the routine, she came to a pleasant realization. "Oh, actually, I'm feeling pretty good." "I am pleased to see it." The android stood up to meet Lucy at not quite eye level. Lucy looked her up and down, taking in the standard fair oracle dress she was wearing. It was pleasing to her eyes. "Using a dead person's image?" Lucy said, giving her a disapproving stare. "It seems a little insensitive." It is common practice for residents to have androids created based on the image of loved ones who have passed away. "I never asked you to do that." Nor did I ask you to meet me or do whatever it is that we're doing right now, Lucy said, but paused for a moment to search her memory. Or, did I? No, there was no such request made by you that I am aware of, but before we continue, you may have the impression that I am Oracle. I am not. Rather, I am a modified portion of Oracle's interfacial personality for the purposes of facilitating communication with the cryptic descent. Prophet is their chosen designation for me. The descent. Lucy was surprised. She didn't think she would ever hear from them again. Then she registered the android system's name. Prophet? Really? I guess that's cool. Well, what does the descent want? What they want is to continue their work of exposing the beneficiaries, Oracle, and perhaps the benefactors themselves. Fuck the Oracle and the benefactors, Lucy said, crossing her arms not unlike an upset child. If they don't want me, then I don't really care what they want. That seems like a very impulsive response, Prophet said, and incorrect, based on your history. What's that supposed to mean? The people that Oracle is taking seem to be those most susceptible to victimization, a large number of them being children. From what has been revealed about yourself, unless you are lying, victimization of the defenseless is something that you cannot abide. The lump in her throat and the pit in her stomach had returned after being absent during her vacation from reality. Even if Lucy was able to overcome the incredibly powerful forces that governed this world, she knew that pit wasn't going anywhere. The only thing in her entire life that made it bearable was when she abandoned reality entirely and forced herself to forget about the undeniable fact of humanity and the universe, that suffering is inevitable. If I can't seem to improve the lives of those around me, Lucy said, facing an empty corner, why shouldn't I just enjoy my own? You certainly can. This is not an order or a demand, but a request from both the cryptic descent and the humanity purists. A plea, if you will. Dinara? Lucy asked. The android affirmed with a nod. Lucy looked at the ground. I couldn't save them, not a single one. And when I do have the opportunity to try defending someone, I'm like an insignificant bug that is so little threat as to be ignored completely. What makes you think I could help anybody? It is precisely because of your apparent invisibility to Oracle that we believe you could be a benefit to the descent and purest common cause, if you'll excuse the verbiage. I also want to point out that there is no verification that Kit, Miguel, or Rosa, let alone any of those that are missing, may in fact be dead, Prophet said. Lucy looked at her, observing the form she had assumed. If the possibility of saving any of them isn't enough, then how about revenge? Lucy had thought about what she would do if Val or Amelia was within arm's reach, but she was starting to have doubts about whether she would ever be able to get to her, or that the satisfaction would be worth the effort. She was starting to wonder whether she should just stop worrying about it and enjoy this world as long as it doesn't seem to have it out for her. However, the idea of ignoring those that may need her help gave her no small amount of discomfort.
Okay. No small amount of discomfort. Alright, that was 260... 267. No small amount of discomfort. Sort of feel that maybe whatever's causing people to disappear. Um, write a list of masculine or gender neutral first and last names. Uh, it's enough to keep him from vagining overnight. Rowan Monroe is what this kid's name is gonna be. Okay, and Lucy. Dang, I can't just put it there. Oh, see? After landing on Baratia, Amelia is suspected to have murdered a young boy named... what did I call him? Rowan Monroe. Want to read Michael's and Ben's fight? Sure, I can read that. I'll even read it on stream if you'd like. Depending on how long it is. You know, send me like 1,000 words or something. Alright, 268? Is that where I was? No small amount of discomfort. Okay.
How do you expect I can help? Lucy carried a tone that indicated her anger if they hadn't come to her with any kind of plan. The Descent has been scraping and analyzing data from Oracle, and we have a working theory that could provide us with the likely candidates for selection as a beneficiary. Furthermore, we have developed an update to the BSI compatibility modification that will mimic the meta-signatures of a recipient, making you appear to Oracle as that person, effectively making you a beneficiary. It was quite the interesting prospect, though Lucy didn't care much about being a beneficiary. At the moment, she imagined that the only thing she would do at the resort would be exactly what she had been doing for the past few days. Or week. She wasn't quite sure how long it had been. She still wasn't confident that she could do anything to save anyone who had been taken, but she knew that she would likely be going to the same place that Amelia was at and would have 24 hours to find her.
Okay. If I push the DNA itself away, but not the genetics, that might work? Ben thought he locked it. He placed his hands on his stomach and saw a bright white glow come from his hand and got diluted into a pale green. Ben? A man said. I'll be out in a minute, Dad. Ben shouted out to him. He put on a fresh dress shirt and replaced his ripped trousers with a pair of crimson wing suit trousers. Michael took one look at his son and saw that he was different from last night. He couldn't place his finger on it, but he noticed something was off. Well, Ben, as you know, I'm the king, and since you're home, I've been thinking. Michael paused. I think I've been with two E's. I've been thinking. Hey there, Kaiju. Welcome. Michael paused. You thinking of stepping down? Ben said. Yeah, but to know if you're truly ready, Michael took a short pause. You have to beat me in a fight. Michael was wearing an oversized hoodie and a pair of tracksuit bottoms. His crown lay askew on his head, and his hair was a messy rat's nest. You sure you can win, old man? Ben asked. Michael handed him a pair of gloves. Take these. They were mine when I was your age. Ben remembered them exactly how they used to look. How they still looked. The bird training gloves that Michael brought when he couldn't control his burned beast form. Wait, did you lose your canines? Michael said, seeing Ben smiling with his mouth open. Not really. Only an avian can be king, right? I will become worthy, Ben said, to see a look of pride on Michael's face. His child was finally learning his destiny. Michael went to stand out front, near the home tree. Alright, I'm ready, Dad, Ben said, with a waistcoat thrown over his shirt. Alright, let's start this fight, Anai and Onyx said in unison as they opened their lawn chairs and devoured the bucket of popcorn. Ben stood waiting for Michael to hit first. So are we using... Michael collided a punch into the side of Ben's face, which caused his opponent to lose balance temporarily. Ben scrapped his previous question and went all guns a-blazing. If I'm fighting Dad, I'll have to use his own strength and reflexes against him, Ben thought as he unfurled his wings. Ben looked to be trying to escape, but quickly created a portal under Michael's feet. My turf now, old man. Ben mocked Michael as he booted his dad's chest. I'm not that old. Only 34, Michael said, trying to use his nexoplasm to grab Ben's leg. Ben created a fire shield to his hand. It was nothing like they had seen before. Deep crimson flame instead of his current blue flame, or his younger self's orange flame. The nexoplasm instantly retreated back into Michael's skin, and Michael chose to do close quarters combat. How the hell is he this strong? Maybe my theory was right. Any child born of the NAFTA spirit is stronger than the generation before. Michael wondered as he felt a sharp pain in his side. Looked down to see Ben's foot lodged between his side and his metallic fork. That's pretty good. It's a good fight, man. Good job. NAFTA. NAFTA? North American Free Trade Agreement. Okay, that's what I thought when I heard the word NAFTA. I don't think that's what you were going for. Gonna have Ben do the Michael flip. Cool. Cool. So what have you been thinking, Kaiju? Okay.
So, Prophet said, what is your answer? What happens if I say no? The Descent and the Purists will continue to pursue other avenues in their fight against the Benefactors and Oracle. They may continue to try and convince you to join their cause, but they have pledged peaceful contact only. They will not retaliate in any way. Lucy wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. The request seemed like a lot of responsibility. She just wanted to return to a drug-addled sex fugue and forget that reality exists at all. As Lucy started thinking about what she wanted to do, she started thinking about the stories she'd heard, both here in Veracity and back home in the Milky Way. of towers made up entirely of people who abandoned their bodies altogether in favor of living as a brain in a case, forever in a perfect virtual reality. The idea sounded more appealing the more she thought about it. She had already been considering biting the bullet and just getting her BSI modified, but she wanted to have her fill of purely analog carnal pleasures before diving headlong into the digital ones. After several minutes pacing the maintenance room of this abandoned building, Lucy finally decided that she would assist the cryptic descent and the humanity purists. Once she agreed, she was scheduled to have the BSI modification procedure on the following day in the atrium. She returned to Desire Sanctum for the night and made sure that the staff would have her ready for the procedure before it started. They did exactly as she asked, and she was awake and fully sober at the time that she asked, but there was nothing they could do to assuage her feeling that it didn't last long enough. The procedure itself wasn't much different from Amelia's. The primary change was installing a hardware firewall that allowed Lucy to cut herself off completely from any connected network, while also containing a side-loaded program that used Oracle's sensory cloaking abilities against it, making Lucy's digital footprint disappear completely. She could also use the program to mimic the image and signature of another person, though it would require the person she was mimicking to stop transmitting.
NAFTA was Michael's grandfather's family. Originally spelled NAFTA, but NAFTA rolled off the tongue a bit better. William NAFTA, Kaz NAFTA, she gave herself the surname, Lumo's daughter. Well, I'm tempted to change the name to Luce instead of Lumo, because Luces is lights in Spanish. Lumo is a Harry Potter spell. I mean, I definitely understand the feeling to want to change names when you find that it's used somewhere else. But I mean, I think Lumo would be all right, you know. Luthus. That's an interesting pronunciation.
The Descent floated the idea of having Lucy kill the person that she was going to be replacing, but when Lucy pushed back, they instead suggested that they could send the person a virus that could shut down the person's wireless transmitter. Lucy was angry at them for not having suggested it first. She was surprised to hear them even suggest murder, but came to the understanding that most people in Veracity were so detached from real-world violence and death that they didn't consider the toll that happens to the killer, something Lucy knew all too well. According to the Descent's research, the most likely female candidate to win the prize of beneficiary was Fatima Singh. From her public profile, she seemed like a generally upstanding citizen, but based on the private data that Oracle had collected, the woman had a penchant for taking advantage of anyone she interacted with, often delighting in how cruel she could be. Lucy was surprised to read the information and questioned whether the Descent really thought that she would be one of the next beneficiaries. The Descent informed her that they were as surprised as she was. Prophet had made the determination, and that every other likely candidate had very similar private lives. The last thing that needed to be done before Lucy could take the woman's place was to stop Fatima's BSI from broadcasting. How do you expect to be able to do that? Lucy asked as she paced into Nara's office. We can use the same method we will be using on you, Prophet said, making her invisible to Oracle and anyone with an active BSI. I don't know if that's such a great idea, Din said. Making a psychopath invisible seems like it would cause much more harm than good. We agree, Prophet replied, which is why we recommend sending a command that will interrupt her brain from communicating with her body. Dinara and Lucy looked at each other with concern on their faces. Assuming her body is in a place where it won't be found, Lucy said after a brief pause, would she just lay there for days until death from dehydration or starvation? No. The command would stop her heart as well, and she would experience brain death within 4 to 6 minutes. Jesus, Dinara said. That shit's really possible using the BSIs? Prophet replied to her with an affirmative, though Lucy was already well aware of the dangers. Even back in the Milky Way, the BSI's capability of monitoring and controlling autonomous bodily functions was explicitly laid out to any patient before getting the procedure, even to those who received the procedure from underground. Unlicensed surgeons, as was the case with Lucy. It is possible to send another command that overloads the BSI, using the implanted electrodes to fry her brain matter. While it is expected to be much quicker than the previous option, the process is still extremely painful, Prophet said. If you are concerned about ending her life in the most humane way possible, we might recommend destroying her brain with a well-placed round from your rifle. The gun that Prophet was referring to was standing against a corner of the room, where it had been since Lucy failed to protect Kit. Already, it had started gathering clutter around it. Back in the Milky Way, she had a confirmed kill count in the dozens, but each of whom had been done in defense of another person in immediate peril. She'd never killed a defenseless person. The idea didn't sit well with her, even if the person she would be killing was a violent psychopath. Prophet could see Lucy's hesitation, and even if it wasn't being transmitted in real time to the cryptic descent, they would have been able to predict it. Nonetheless, Prophet said, you must be within a short range of the subject in order for the identity transference to take place properly. If you have objections toward killing a person, then you may consider making sure she doesn't suffer for longer than necessary. Either way, you will need to be near her. Kill 2 birds with 1 bullet. Lucy whispered to herself. Birds. Dinara's ears perked up. Have you seen birds before? Why, yeah.
I just... I just remember seeing a comic a few days ago. I can't remember what. It might have been in Exo Comics. But, it was very... I think it was even just one frame, and it was just, a couple of birds, like, in, you know, in some brush or whatever. And one saying to the other, don't be so worried. He's only got 1 stone. It's so simple, but it's so funny. Oh. Don't worry, he's only got 1 stone. I don't know if that was exactly the way it went. It might have been, what's he gonna do with only 1 stone? Really? Well, I mean, it's used for other things here in the United States as well. Like, we have toothbrushes that brush our teeth, and then we have larger brushes, you know, for your hair, or a brush for... I guess brushes are usually used for grooming in the United States. Like personal grooming. But then there's also like paint brushes and stuff too. And yeah, bushed. We don't really use bushed as much here in the US, I guess. We could use like bushy, a bushy area, or bushes. Yeah, bushes. So even when referring to, you know, plant matter, you know, out there, weeds, brush isn't really very often used in just normal, like, language. So since you may notice that sometimes I prefer to write a little more, like, technically than versus I don't know, more... I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Welcome, Y. How are you doing today? I saw you post something on Instagram. I think it was Instagram a little while ago. It was an ad for a new story that you're releasing. It seemed pretty interesting. Can I ask how you made the video? Like what your workflow was? Because I really want to start doing more like scripted and created videos that I could post on TikTok and Insta and whatever. But yeah, I don't know like what apps I should be using, what programs on my PC, preferably free ones, you know. That's a promo for your first story. The first one you ever wrote? The first one you ever put up, or what? One of the annoying girls in my class knows about RSS. That's cool. That's very cool, why? If I get hate comments or something, but she sits beside me in Spanish and we had a free yesterday. Hate comments? Is that something that she does? She just goes to people and posts hateful comments? Cool. What did you think? Took the blurb and deconstructed the book cover. Music. It's the same music I created for the audiobook. Very cool. I forgot that you made music too. That's very cool. Does she hate you, or is she actually really into you? That's how she expresses it. Through aggression. She could see it, instantly starts hating on it. She seems like a person that wants to be a leader, not a follower, you know? And if she finds out that somebody likes the same thing as her, she feels like she's worried that people might think that she's unoriginal and that she's copying you, you know? Planning to have a promo video for each of my stories. Are you like using CapCut on your phone, or like I don't know. I literally don't know the first thing about making videos these days on PC. I mean, I can record stuff with OBS, and I can like pull up the video that I recorded, but I've never done any photo editing or video editing. Jeez, my guts. She made a whole group chat name with my full legal name, Hate Club. I don't know, that sounds like crush behavior to me. If you want to get her to stop, doing that, start implying that you think that she's into you. Lego has a whole category, like building Legos. I'm not surprised. That's, I'm only surprised that it's taken them this long to make that category. Is it new? Did they just, recently create that? Clipchamp is an MS program. It came with the computer, but I also use Blender because I've been using that for years. I use Blender. I have Blender. Blender can be used as a useful video editing program. I mean, I've done a little bit of like animations and stuff in Blender. But I've never like imported a video and like cut the video using Blender. Or does Blender, can you get like an audio track in Blender as well and like clip and cut the audio track? Can you do that independently of the video and stuff? Does it say ripped instead of bulky and shredded? Strong. I was gonna say pulsating. No, I don't think pulsating. Rippling is good. Built. Well built. Cut, yes. Antonchi. I was wondering if you were talking about Blender, because we're talking about Clipchamp and, you know, cutting videos and stuff. But yes, as referring to somebody who's well-defined, yeah, well-defined. Describing the person as cut. Or chiseled. Chiseled is good. Like chiseled out of stone or chiseled out of marble. Nice. You ever used Blender before, Poyo? Blender's great. I love Blender. It's so good. I've been using Blender since years before you were born, Poyo. Yeah, make a donut. Donut is a great thing. Go find Blender Guru and do the donut tutorial if you've never used it before. Well, when you open up the program for the first time, the default scenario you have, I forget what it's called, the default project, is a cube. There's just one single cube in the middle, so 94, wow. I'm actually very surprised that it's that old. I started using it in like 2006, 2007 the first time. Watch. Check this out. Bang. Bam. Blender 4.1. Yeah, this is probably already out of date, huh? Animation Studio Neo Geo. Cool. Boom. There you go. Cube made. Easy clap. GG no re. Watch this. Boom. Now it's gone. And then Shift A. Add mesh cube. Boom. New cube done. A cube speed run. And I found out one of the best ways to actually make a sphere for geometry's sake, to make it easy to like edit using like cuts and stuff. You go to here, add modifier. You go to the modifiers. You add modifier. You add a multi-resolution. Yeah. And okay. Now how do I do this again? Oh yeah, start subdividing that bad boy. And after a few subdivisions, you'll have pretty much a perfect sphere. And once you apply it, you go here, apply, and you go into start working on it in 3D view, like working on its individual, you know, points and stuff. And you go to face mode. Faces is the word I was looking for. And you can select all the way around it in either direction. And being able to do that, like do the loop selections, makes it way, way easier than if you just did. Let's get out of here. Let's do add mesh UV sphere. So this is the official UV sphere. Let me get rid of that cube so we can't see it anymore. And now if I start editing this UV sphere, and let's try and do a loop select right here. Oh, see? It stops right there. It won't go all the way around. I mean, the horizontal ones do, which can be useful in certain situations. But the vertical ones, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, they're all, it doesn't go all the way through in a very neat way. And the, you know, the lids here are made of tris instead of quads. You basically want quads, like four-sided geometry, as much as you can all over the model. And so, yeah, it's just a little tip that I learned that comes in really handy for, you know, lots of stuff. I can select individual lines. It's cool. Giving up on Blender. If I ever get a PC, I might start using it. Wait, how did you start downloading Blender if you... Or are you just talking about on your laptop? Your laptop is flagging it as a virus. It does that for pretty much anything that you install, right? But it's from Blender Foundation, so yeah, I've sculpted some stuff in Blender. Sculpting is good stuff. You went to blender.org website, right? Not blender.com. .3. See, ooh, I'm 0.2 versions behind. Blender video editing. Built-in video sequence editor allows you to perform basic actions like video cuts and splicing, as well as more complex tasks like video masking and color grading. Live preview, audio, mixing, syncing, scrubbing, and waveform visualization. Cool. Maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe I'll start cutting some of my videos in Blender. That'll be cool. Make a promo video for my channel. I also want to start, like, doing proper videos where I can just talk about and rant about things, you know? Maybe make some TikToks with Odie. Alright, let's continue.
Why, yeah. You guys don't have birds here? I suppose I didn't see any on my way in. Not really. Just chickens, turkeys, nothing that flies. There was a flock of cockatoos a long time ago, almost 200 I think, but they all died out pretty quick. Din stopped herself from getting carried away. I'd like to hear more about the birds you've seen, but perhaps some other time. The woman's obvious interest in ornithology was endearing to Lucy, encouraging her to crack a genuine smile. With the beneficiaries gala only days away, Lucy wasn't quite sure they would get the opportunity. After some more detailed planning based on Fatima's predicted itinerary, Lucy received the new modification for her interface, thoroughly cleaned her rifle, and set out to find and trail her quarry. As soon as she made it to the surface from the atrium, Lucy activated her BSI for the first time since she landed 3 weeks ago. Seeing the bootlog and Belle Westbrook startup animation released a flood of dopamine and sent shivers down her spine. As her HUD pulled up just the way she had set it, she saw a greeting by text from Lumina, or rather, a partition of Lumina's digital personality saved on her BSI's local memory. It was enough to make her feel at home. She sent a greeting in response and calibrated her targeting system with her weapon before activating the new cloaking feature built into the external firewall and finally connecting to Veracity's network for the first time. The test to make sure it was working was easy, simply walking into the first person she saw on the street. It was a man walking slowly with a half-dancing gait. Lucy suspected he may not have been completely sober, but when she collided directly into him, nearly knocking him to the ground, it was a good sign that the man looked around, confused. The next person Lucy shoulder-checked was an older, more professional and alert-looking woman, who also responded with a confused expletive. She looked through Lucy, not noticing her at all. With only 2 points of data, Lucy already felt fairly confident that her cloaking program was working, but she continued to test it anyway, pushing people and knocking things out of their hands as a cathartic release of tension.
Actually, you helped me name the rifle after Britt. But she's not a very sentimental person, so she wouldn't really put people's names on her rifle. That's like not really something that she's too concerned about. She sees her rifle more as a tool than anything, and doesn't really care to, like, personalize it.
Once connected to the network, Lucy was able to make contact with Dinara and Prophet, allowing them to guide her toward the target. When Lucy found Fatima, she was walking past a bodega and through an alley. Lucy followed her at a distance for nearly an hour, waiting for the descent to send the kill command to the unsuspecting woman's brainstem interface, trusting that they would only do it in a location where Lucy would be able to fire her rifle without gaining attention. The moment came when Fatima made a few turns through a winding tunnel, then suddenly dropped to the ground, limp and motionless. Lucy's reaction was quick in lining her sights to the woman's head within a second of her collapse, but she hesitated. Lucy considered whether the psychopath deserved to experience a few moments of agony as her brain became hypoxic. Ultimately, Lucy put a round into Fatima's temple before her abruptly isolated mind could process what had just happened. Ballistic shock ruptured most of the brain cells that didn't explode out of the other side of the woman's cranium. At the recommendation of her support team, Lucy pulled the corpse into a maintenance access corridor. As she did, she also followed their instructions to enable the Mimic program, taking Fatima's place. Lucy then ran the Veracity BSI OS shell and connected to the city network, where she immediately saw her HUD change to match the customized appearance of the now dead woman. The choice of font, color scheme, and selection and placement of her widgets made Lucy cringe. She was generally a fan of a minimalist style with a focus on readability and situationally relevant data, but Fatima's setup was all over the place, and it took a moment for Lucy to realize just what she was looking at. On either side of her facing direction were chat rooms, direct message logs, and video forums. The motion of the auto-playing videos immediately caught her attention. They were videos of people, often tied up, being slapped, beaten, and worse. Some were nude, and some appeared to be questionably young. When Lucy scrolled down to see a dog in one of the videos, Lucy closed the window before even a moment of it began to play. The chat rooms and DMs, while devoid of images or videos as far as she could tell, still contained dialogue describing much the same content in the form of roleplays and fantasy discussions. Lucy didn't read anything particularly explicit, but she read enough to see the malicious power dynamics at play. When one of the DMs pinged with a message asking Fatima about her favorite sounds that an animal can make, Lucy closed the chat and all the others. After assuming Fatima's identity, all that she needed to do was wait for the call. She didn't need to go to the gala, and even if she did, she would be able to change her appearance digitally, but something about the event interested her. She had never gone to any such high-class gathering. It was the kind of thing she had always scoffed at, something simply for the ultra-rich to flaunt their money. On this world, however, high fashion and elegance was available to everyone, Lucy included. The highest quality attire that she had ever owned was her armor, which was just about the highest quality that could be purchased after her first lucrative mercenary contract paid out. She loved the armor and wore it often enough to think of it as a second skin, but now she had growing interest in showing more of her first. Lucy left the woman's corpse and returned to the surface. Lucy had never realized just how good it felt to be online. She had a bit of trouble finding settings and certain apps, which was completely understandable after a century being separated from the Milky Way, let alone being customized by a clearly disturbed person that's basically free to do anything. Lucy
Okay, I
was
need to
nervous
clarify. Which is completely understandable after... after the technology had been separated from the Milky Way for nearly a century. Okay.
She had a bit of trouble finding settings and certain apps, which was completely understandable after the technology had been separated from the Milky Way for nearly a century, let alone being customized by a clearly disturbed person that's basically free to do anything. Lucy was nervous about opening her web browser to start looking up how-tos, and she was right.
The customization by a clearly disturbed person that's basically free to do anything. Made her confusion worse. Okay.
She had a bit of trouble finding settings and certain apps.
Ugh.
Apps, which was completely understandable after the technology had been separated from the Milky Way for nearly a century. The customization by a clearly disturbed person made her confusion worse. Lucy was nervous about opening her web browser to start looking up how-tos, and she was right too, as the first page that popped up with a combination hemocoprophilia site with a focus on living decay that made Lucy's stomach churn. She was going to click the home button, but wondered whether Fatima's homepage could have been even worse, so she instead went to the search bar. She typed in cute puppies, but again hesitated, wondering how Oracle would have interpreted the request. Lucy finally decided on searching for images of serene mountains and lakes to refer back to if it was needed. In another browser tab, she started searching for guides to Voracious BSI settings and how to access a map widget comparable to that which Lucy desperately missed from her own HUD. She'd had some experience studying maps of the city and region on mobile displays, but it was nothing compared to the fully immersive experience with augmented reality overlays. When Lucy selected the search option on the map, a miniature, floating representation of an Oracle android appeared, a waifish person that would have been androgynous were its penis not clearly visible. Lucy was quickly starting to learn Fatima's type, and she wasn't a particular fan. "What are you looking for, mistress?" Oracle asked in a small, submissive voice. "Take me to a high-quality clothier, someplace known for making outfits for the gala." "Yes, mistress, right away." "Don't refer to me as mistress anymore. I would like you to call me Lucy, and put some clothes on while you're at it. Maybe add a little more meat to your bones." "Yes, Lucy," Oracle said as it became wrapped in a fine gray suit and gained a little muscle to fill it in nicely. While Oracle ordered an automated cab, it also described the nearest high-profile clothier, Sovereign Ensemble, pulling up images and short videos as it spoke. It was as good a place as any. When Lucy arrived at the boutique, one of the first things she noticed was a mirror outside the front entrance. As she stepped in front of it and saw her reflection, she felt chills shoot down her spine. She looked exactly like Fatima, albeit wearing her signature armor. However, as she looked at the mirror, the combat gear she was wearing faded and changed into an elegant spaghetti-strap pencil dress. Lucy instinctively turned to see how the fabric hugged her slender body and couldn't help but smile. After a few seconds, the dress changed to another and another. Lucy went through nearly a dozen outfits, each one releasing a rush of endorphins into her brain, before realizing that the outfits she was looking at were dynamically generated based on a long list of randomized attributes. She stepped into the boutique and began browsing the prefabricated clothing on offer. Dresses weren't exactly her thing. Lucy had never worn one in her life, in fact. As soon as she figured out how to wear the first dress she grabbed, she slipped into it and suddenly felt almost nude. Without straps, she had to ditch her bra and constantly worried that she was going to fall out of it. The feeling of the open air between her thighs was also a very strange feeling, but when she looked at herself in the mirror, she loved what she saw, even if it wasn't exactly her. Lucy tried on as many styles of dresses as were available in the boutique, eventually settling on a dark red off-the-shoulder pencil dress that glimmered brilliantly in the light. She thought it was a moderately comfortable fit, but when she took the dress to the shop owner to confirm her selection, the owner handed the dress off to the auto tailor, which made adjustments based on measurements done on Lucy's body in the changing room. Putting the dress back on afterward was a night and day difference, with every fold and bend conforming perfectly with her body. Hours were spent in the store, a fact that surprised Lucy, especially considering how averse to shopping she was, but she felt beautiful in a way that she had never felt before, which made it all worth it. When she returned to the atrium, she received a few looks from Din and nothing from Prophet, but she didn't mind. After changing back into her standard outfit, she spent the rest of the day talking with Dinara about birds, mostly the ones that populated her home world of Aurelia before its ecosystem collapsed. Lucy couldn't remember if they were of old Earth origin or many details beyond simply seeing them flying around, but she talked as much about them as she could. Din was enthralled, nonetheless. As relaxing as her drug-fueled sex fugue was, Lucy found that simply chatting with Dinara about pleasant things was similarly relaxing and comforting enough to carry her into a restful sleep. The skies above on the day of the gala were immaculate, as they always were. It was the benefit of selecting the location of a settlement based on incredibly detailed data gathered from highly accurate sensors and lengthy atmospheric and geological studies. Lucy donned her dress and met with Dinara one more time before leaving for the gala. Neither of them was exactly sure what was going to happen. In the best-case scenario, Lucy would find a way home, and Din may never see her again, and the worst cases would have the same result. Din gave Lucy a warm, tight hug, something that neither of the women had felt in quite some time. "I'll be watching for as long as I can, but I expect there's a firewall around the resort," Dinara said. "I have uploaded a partition of myself onto your local memory," Prophet said, "which may provide some tactical support should you need it." Prophet was standing emotionless, and it made no gestures showing intention for physical contact. Even so, Lucy felt awkward in treating it like everyone else did, like it was a thing, which it was. "Good luck, Lucy," Dinara said, holding Lucy's shoulders. "Same to you, Dinara." Lucy placed her hands on top of Din's. She then moved to the door, picking her rifle up and slinging it across her shoulder. It may not have felt strange to Lucy, but it would certainly look strange to any onlookers if the gun wasn't also dynamically removed from their visions. She did get curious looks from people in the atrium, but as soon as she returned to the surface, nobody batted an eye. Arriving at the gala this time was much different than in the previous month. When she stepped into an automated cab, she gave Oracle her destination of the beneficiaries' gala. On Oracle's suggestion, Lucy agreed to be dropped off in front of the main entrance for the full red carpet experience. What she saw when she arrived was beyond her expectations. The ingress into the main hall of the gala was a breathtaking display of distilled opulence. The carpet was primarily the deep red that was expected, but was inlaid with fine golden designs that carried the eye forward. On either side of the carpet was a crowd of hundreds with dozens of small camera drones floating above them, all trying to get a look at whoever was arriving, which was Lucy at that moment. Being the center of attention with hundreds of cameras and eyes on her made Lucy feel like she was being cooked alive, but there was a tingle in her core that made her understand why many people would seek that attention. She could feel the rifle strapped to her shoulder, but not one of the faces appeared to notice it. Everyone was focused on her beautiful red dress, for which she received several cheers and a generous applause. It was hours before the selection would happen. There were many different areas to visit that she had no interest in the last time she was here. In particular, she had read about the gourmet dining lounge where the best food in the city is served, and chefs are able to try out bold new dishes. The smell wafting from the dining lounge spread through the gala like wildfire. It irresistible to Lucy. She began looking through the digital menu. The main dish was the celestial lamb rack, marinated in a blend of Veracia hybrid herbs and spices, grilled to perfection, and served with a side of truffle-infused polenta and roasted pure earth vegetables. The meal was displayed in front of her in high definition, complete with the mouth-watering aroma. Lucy didn't need to see anything else. She ordered a plate immediately. She received a countdown of a half hour, long enough for her to visit the fashion extravaganza and gawk at all of the phenomenal attire unlike anything she'd ever seen in the Milky Way. After watching the fashion show and gorging on her succulent lamb meal, Lucy had enough time to visit the auction to find out how an auction works on a planet without a traditional currency. When she applied to join the auction, Lucy was shown a public status ranking from which her auction points were derived. The number, Fatima's number, was incredibly high, though Lucy had nothing to compare it with. She didn't care how much she had, since it wasn't actually her that the social status ranking was based on. Even so, Lucy did not end up bidding on any of the old Earth artifacts, fine art, or services on display. The last event before the beneficiary selection was a live performance and interpretive play that was bolstered by a swarm of drones and high-tech machines. Lucy wasn't very well versed in analyzing interpretive narratives, but she was able to gather that it was a story about the life cycle of a star. It was a spectacle, whether she understood it or not. The astonishment didn't end at the conclusion of the set as it blended seamlessly into the introduction of the gala's ever-grinning host. He rose from the floor under the veil of colorful mist and emerged into a wall of excited cheer. Lucy was swept up in the fervor, cheering along with the rest of the crowd. "Welcome, one and all, to the monthly beneficiaries gala." The host waved his cane to punctuate his words, and the crowd erupted again. Lucy did remember the spiel from last month, but she was much more invested this time. "In just a few moments, 21 of you will be chosen to embark on an extraordinary journey to the Beneficiaries Resort, a sanctuary where every desire is fulfilled and freedom knows no bounds. Hold your breath and embrace the excitement, for the beneficiary selection begins now." The host paused for the cheers and posed for the cameras before continuing. "Our first beneficiary is Sophia Yamamoto. This would be the first opportunity that the Cryptic Descent would have to find out how accurate their predictions would be." Lucy had seen a list of the most likely candidates, but she couldn't remember many of the specific names. She only wondered how long she would have to wait before Fatima's name would be called. It wasn't long, however. "Beneficiary number 6 is Fatima Singh. Congratulations," the host said. Lucy had completely forgotten that Fatima was the name she was listening for, only realizing that she had been called when the flying throne drone approached her. Her surprise was genuine when the chair shot confetti into her face.
Or her name would be called.
Lucy had completely forgotten that Fatima was the name she was listening for, only realizing that she had been called when the flying throne drone approached her. Her surprise was genuine when the chair shot confetti into her face. She looked around, seeing the crowd part and start applauding her. When her brain finally caught up to the situation, Lucy took a seat on the throne, tucking her dress under her thighs and grinning awkwardly. The chair only carried her 10 meters to the stage, but Lucy maintained a white-knuckle grip on the arms the entire way. She couldn't imagine being whisked across the city. Once the throne arrived at the stage, Lucy rose from the seat and an Oracle android warmly ushered her into the transport that was waiting behind the stage. The android
She couldn't imagine being whisked across the city as some of the other beneficiaries were.
Once the throne arrived at the stage, Lucy rose from the seat and an Oracle android warmly ushered her into the transport that was waiting behind the stage. The android deposited her into the common room with the other 5 beneficiaries. After going to the bar and ordering a light cider with no additives, Lucy walked around the space, listening to the conversations of the other beneficiaries without joining in. She avoided making direct contact with anyone as more continued to trickle in.
Chapter 11. Okay, I'm actually gonna call it there. But I intend to be back on a little bit later. Playing some Infinity Nikki. The game is fun. Maybe doing some photo stuff. Anyway. Does Lucy or Kit die at the end? Because if not, possibly for a sequel. As in, does Lucy escape Veracia? So, I've been leaving a lot of my stories open. Right? Sophie survives the end of Deicide. I've actually left it kind of ambiguous what happens to Theo. Though Theo, during these times, would be very, pretty old if I do continue him. And yes, in this, it's left vague. But, like, Kit could be dead. But Lucy is alive. But she's in a really, really bad way and could very much, it's very reasonable, even likely, that she could die. But yeah. Did it say that it shot himself through the back of his skull? You might have to go read it again. You might have to be, pay attention to the details. Yeah, do you want me to tell you? Tell you what I did? The trickery that I performed? The little details in it that, kind of implies that maybe he didn't die after all? So, when he goes into Synapse's room with a revolver with 6 rounds in it, and that's it. That's all of the ammunition that he has. He uses the gun. He starts firing throughout the last chapter or two, at several people. Now, I detail every single one of the gunshots that he makes and where it hits and everything, but I didn't explicitly number them. So you would have to go and read it and pay attention to every time that he shot his gun to count how many rounds he used. And the one that he used on Synapse at the end of the story was round number 6. So his gun was actually completely empty when he put it in his mouth and pulled the trigger. He didn't have any more rounds in his gun. So yeah. So he did. He brought a desperately needed smile to his face just before he pulled the trigger. I didn't say anything about his head being blown out. I didn't say anything about a gunshot. I didn't say anything, about his death. That's the very end of it. He pulled the trigger. But what I didn't say is that the trigger just went click because he had already used all 6 of the rounds that he had available, and he had lost count of them. So, I mean, it's kind of sad if you think about it. Like, it brought a desperately needed smile to his face, thinking about being with his family again, and then it doesn't happen. I mean, it wouldn't really have happened anyway, but it was a nice thought to him. But then it didn't happen. He was still alive. And not only was he still alive, but he's been infected and he's been selected by oh my god, what was her name? There's a Synapse reference in Devour. Not exactly. There's a slight reference to the viruses that were going around, the horror viruses that were going around, that Synapse took advantage of, but did not actually create themselves. I mean, I'm pretty sure I did use the word synapse. She said like that she would fry Kit's synapses if he didn't yeah. Here, let me save this. We're on chapter 11. Control F. Synapse. If I hear one goddamn sound come out of your stupid mouth, I'm gonna fry every last one of your synapses until all your gray matter is as black as coal. Yeah. Alright. Save. And I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Again, I'll be back later. Hoyo, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Are there any streamers that we should check out? Your teeth is cutting through dental floss. Oh, hey, damage is, just saying the Moog. Who is Moog? Is that their... Remember, if you're gonna suggest things, make sure to put their whole, twitch.tv/Moog with 3 Gs. Okay, that is somebody. Cool. Let's do it. Alright. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And go to patreon.com/BennyKill709 for if you'd like to support me. And yeah, let's head on over to Moog. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your night.